First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining this roundtable session. I hope it will be enjoyable and for everyone. So we are hosting this roundtable, Chiratae Ventures from India, and TC, he will be the moderator for this roundtable. So I will just leave it to him.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed and Timia, for organizing this. Thank you, Alia Global. And I would like to welcome everyone to this conversation. I would like to keep it a more conversational level in terms of, trying to discuss about the opportunity that India presents in terms of, tech investing. And, I would like to understand from each of you as the beginning, in terms of your expectations from this meeting, what you plan to get out of this, and also whether you have any exposure to India already in terms of investments, whether VC, PE, or direct investments, and any experiences of past investments. That will be good to understand and possibly manage the flow of conversation to your requirements. So
Sure,
who would like to go first?
Yes.
I can go first.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ruchi Dana. I'm based in Dubai. I'm a medical doctor and a Stanford MBA, and I represent our own family office here in Dubai. So we invest quite a lot into healthcare, mainly like medical devices, life science, biotech. And we are also like LPs in some of the micro VC. So we do have an investment in India in a micro VC. And apart from that, we do direct deals with other family offices and with various networks that we have. So that's mainly about like the early stage, like the VC space. That's our exposure there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can go next. I'm Samir Khosla.
Okay.
Hi, Samir. I'm the managing partner of TNF Investments. We are based out of DIFC, but our investment office is based out of Geneva, Switzerland. And we are a private equity firm. We mainly invest in technologies. We have underlying investments in energy and energy logistics, but we're trying to diversify away from that. So we've been very keen to invest in the Indian technology space. And we have looked at a number of ventures in defense, etc. We do have one investment so far in India, which is we've got permission as a 100% foreign entity to build a resort in the Himalayas in Uttarakhand, and we're now looking at other investments. So yeah, we were able to, which was quite a feat to get. We bought almost under 100 acres of land as a foreign-owned entity. So we went through a governmental process and we secured that. So we're now looking to develop that. But that is not our mainstay. Our mainstay is technology, and that's why I'm on this call. And would love to hear about avenues through which we can cooperate to find ventures that are of interest to us.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else?
I'm happy to go next. Amin bin Talib, I'm a senior portfolio manager with Primera Limited, a family office based out of Dubai. We invest globally. We have been looking at India for years now. Have invested in education, technology, and co-investments. Looked at funds, but I couldn't cross the line there. Looked at and invested in e-commerce in India. these are both sectors have been previously active in listed equities in India, but not currently.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good. Yes. Anybody else has?
I will go next. My name is Madhu. I've been an entrepreneur turned investor. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. Currently, I'm based out of Dubai, but I keep on traveling. I have investments in India from 2006 onwards. My main focus is in wealth tech industry. Currently, we have investments in the health sector as well. As an entrepreneur and investor, it has been all personal monies so far, but I'm now investing with co-investors, and I've set the stage to leverage on a listed entity to be used as a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company in India. I've got some of the who's of the world to the table, and I'm looking at next journey of investment in India in the big hundreds of millions of dollars deal sizes.
That's good. That's good. And India is growing enough to be able to absorb that type of capital.
Exactly. So unprecedented times brings unprecedented opportunities.
That's true.
Thank you.
Who else? Is anybody else interested in sharing in terms of your expectations? Mr. Tobin? Okay. So I think it's good to know that people are interested in technology and and in India as opportunity. I think that is the purpose for which I guess all of us are assembled here. Just to give a quick background about Chiratae Ventures. Chiratae Ventures is a early stage technology VC and the classic Silicon Valley style. We do seed, yearly Series A and Series B investments. We started in 2006. We used to be known as IDG Ventures India. Me and my partner Sudhir started this together. And IDG used to be an anchor investor. They backed us in the first fund, and with an understanding that we will build track record and then diversify investor base. Now we are into our fourth fund. We manage close to $800 million since inception. This includes over $110 million of co-investment pool, where our LPs who contribute 5 million or more in terms of to the funds get an opportunity to co-invest alongside us in growth companies, because LPs do get an exposure in the early stage to the blind pool, which has certain mortality rate. So we actually invite them to join us in the Series C or D, where most of the risks are mitigated except execution risk. But the companies are still growing very rapidly. And in these companies, we are able to generate opportunities. I have my colleagues, Karthik. Karthik is one of the partners. And Priyansha. Priyansha is an associate with us. And in terms of walking you through some of our experiences in the Indian space. We invest in largely tech sectors where tech is used as a disruptor and not as an enabler. Because I think tech as an enabler is a necessary table stake for any business today, whether you use it for ERP or bookkeeping or for certain customer interactions. Those are necessary. What we are looking at is where companies are using technology to either disrupt an existing business or create new business opportunities which did not exist earlier. That is what creates actually most value in terms of creation of new markets. For example, all of us know about Uber, right? I think before, your smartphones came, our GPS tracking came, and I think matching algorithms could get refined. Without that, uh, we always had cab companies where we could call on the phone and then get cabs, right? But this actually removed that whole need for the human intervention, improved the productivity, and also made it, a self-serve type of model, gave a fantastic user experience. So it just suddenly took off. And even in Middle East, we saw Kareem, which grew quite big and then got acquired, right, in terms of market leadership. And similarly, if you look at fashion companies, right, India had a company called Myntra, which is one of our portfolio companies. And, they started off selling fashion wear to consumers. And, that is nothing new, right? You go to a mall, you find shops which are either selling their own brands or others' brands. But the difference comes when you walk into an offline store, they actually don't know who walked in. They don't know who stood in certain counters and then what they tried on and then what they bought. But all of this is possible in technology when you open an app to buy today fashion wear, and they know who came in. They look, even if you lingered on a product for a few seconds extra, today technology captures it to be able to know that this is what you like, and whether you added it into a shopping cart or not later. I think this helps a fashion company to disrupt. So Myntra, which in 6 years' time became larger than their nearest competitor, which is an offline company. Some of you may know the name called Shopper Stop, which took 30 years to reach $1 billion in revenue, right? And Myntra actually overtook them in a matter of 6 years, right? And today, Myntra is by far the largest fashion company in the country. That is actually the biggest difference between even Amazon and Flipkart. Flipkart is a homegrown company which was recently, about 2 years ago, was bought by Walmart at a $20 billion valuation. And Chiratae was the first round investor in Myntra. We grew with the company. We invested in them for 6 years, over the 6-year period in 6 different rounds. And then when it got merged with Flipkart, we actually added more capital. And in that round, we also managed to get our LPs to invest in Flipkart. And that generated a return. So that happened in 2014. In 4 years' time, it generated a cash out also for them with a good IRR. So that is something that we help do. This is just a few examples where technology is used as a disruptor and not as an enabler, right? And that also helps. We are an investor in a company called Lenskart, which when we invested in them was a $20,000 a month sales, less than $250,000 in terms of annualized revenue. And that was in 2011. And fast forward 7 years, they have actually overtaken their offline largest company in eyewear business. And they now have built it to over $150 million in revenue. And recently SoftBank came into them. And now they are looking at going global. We have already launched in Southeast Asia and currently looking at actually one of the players in Middle East, and have also launched, pilot launched in US. So this is what actually now Indian companies are not only becoming a local brands with the use of technology where they are able to use, especially Lenskart is able to do AR and VR based, ability for the consumers to get a view of how they look in a frame, which is the biggest decision that happens in a store, right? Not about the power that happens, that anyway the optometrist prescribes it. So they've been able to build, and today they are double the size of their nearest competitor, and I expect that by March 21, they will be triple the size. So, these are some of the cases, and we did Series A, and then now recently they closed Series F with SoftBank coming in. And these two companies in Fund 1 would have returned the full money of the fund, right? Such opportunities, and we are talking about it in the last 10 years time. And leaving aside now Chiratae experience, now let's come back to what is the market opportunity. Rensha, you want to share the deck where we talk about the tech industries share?
Yeah, just share.
So we largely make it, interactive, but in a few instances, we want to share one or two slides just to, communicate certain points, maybe more effectively. So if you look at this is a very telling slide. In US, if the top 15 companies, their market cap was 6.7 trillion as of December 19. That was close to 18% of the total market cap of listed companies in US and 31% of GDP. And they've grown at 24% CAGR compared from 2015, 2.9 trillion going to 6.7. At the same time in India, if you see, it has grown at 9%. And interestingly, most of the top 15 companies in India are IT service companies. You don't have any of the new generation companies. The difference, the reason for the difference in public markets in, let's say, NASDAQ versus India, is that NASDAQ is actually the tech companies which are there, whether you look at Amazon or Apple or Google and Microsoft and so many other companies. And they are still leading the market in terms of all the new innovations which are coming in. And so if globally, if somebody wanted to have an exposure to disruptive new technologies which are coming up, if you invest in NASDAQ, you will get that exposure. But in India, if you want to look at Indian opportunity, India tech companies do not provide that in the listed space, right? And they are about 220 billion, 8% of GDP. And at the same time, Indian VC industry is fairly nascent. It's a 2005, 2006 vintage when second 2.0 started. The first one was during the internet boom and bust. So most companies got funded and very few were standing at the end of 2002. And again, it started again in 2005. If you look at it in the last 15 years time, there are about 160 companies which are currently valued at 100 million or more, and which are adding up to $188 billion. Obviously, the largest company in this is Geo Platforms, which has attracted a lot of attention and a lot of capital during the pandemic shutdown. They raised close to $15 billion. But that's possibly one of the most disruptive digital companies. So here is where I want to draw an attention. It's not always only the startup companies that need to be the disruptive ones, but mostly they tend to be the disruptive ones. But being digital, which is a table stake now for everyone, is necessary. To come back, these private new gen companies are already valued at $188 billion, 7% of GDP. And the gap in growth is very stark indeed, right? The traditional companies are going 8 to 10%. The private companies are going 30 to 60%. And, investors like us who invest in them are also looking at this as an opportunity. We see that in the next 5 years' time, it is plausible that the $188 billion is likely to become $750 billion, right? And when Indian GDP possibly will go from the current 2.5 or so to 3.75. So we do see that actually the new gen tech companies can contribute 20% of GDP. And market cap, we need to see depending on who all get listed. But I think that is the opportunity that we are talking about. It's also important to note, just like NASDAQ and Dow Jones in India, we have a 30 share index called Sensex and Nifty, which is 50 share index. And in Sensex, if you look at it, 1994-95, out of the 30 companies that were there, about 23 of them have churned in the last 25 years. They've all been taken by new generation companies which have come. In fact, there are some companies which some of you may have heard. India's largest market cap banking company called HDFC Bank, that's second largest possibly in terms of book, that was just incorporated in 1994. It didn't even start doing business in 94. And that's a company now today, third highest in market cap and largest market cap in terms of banking system. That is the disruption that used to happen earlier, which always existed. Today, that is being accelerated by technology. In our own portfolio, we have invested in about 90 companies. And out of the 90 companies, we have got now 4 of them, which are unicorns. So one of them got sold to Walmart. But the balance 3 of them are clearly, IPO candidates as we see it. The next slide, Felsha, you want to talk about, if you can move there. I think India Tech, the key growth driver, if you see out of 1.3 billion, the people who are already internet users is only about 560, only 40%. And it is growing very rapidly. And so we do see this as a key driver for the next decade or 2, where the penetration is likely to go. Our own expectation is that India should reach close to 1 billion internet users in the next 5-7 years time. And as most of you may know, Jio has disrupted the telecom market in terms of providing the access, which is the first requirement for being a digital economy, at the most affordable prices. Indian telecom rates possibly are the lowest in the world, and also consumption patterns are the highest in the world. So I think on average now the consumption of Indian users on a monthly basis is approximately 11 GB. It's one of the highest in the world, and we are still only 40% penetration. The third important thing, which you have heard many times, is India is very skewed in terms of demographics towards people under the age of 35, right? More than 2/3 of India is under the age of 35, and people anywhere from 10 to 35 will possibly be close to 50% of the population. So that again, they are the most tech savvy, they adopt tech much faster than others, and they are also the ones who experiment, and those in the 25 plus segment are the ones who have discretionary income which they can actually spend. And when you catch them young, for the next 20-30 years, companies look forward to growing with the consumer. And also when affordability goes up as a country, today we are at $2,000 per capita, and we expect that to grow over time to $8,000 in the next, say, 7 to 10 years time. And that is the time where actually India is likely to be closer to where China's digital market is. So this is going to be a golden decade for digital opportunities that come up. Moving to next slide. So this startup ecosystem, this is something that India has always been a very entrepreneurial company. And it had a lot of traders, it had a lot of small SMEs who been entrepreneurs in their own way. But in the digital ecosystem, we still find a lot of activity taking place in the last 10 years time. There are about 39,000 plus active startups in India, and starting with angel investors, some of the micro VCs, then VCs like us. There are over 2,000 of us. One would call it a second largest ecosystem as well after China. US is pretty active, but in terms of absolute numbers, I think India now is becoming the second largest internet ecosystem. For most of the US leading apps, India is the largest user today. if you look at YouTube, India has a reach of 388 million people who are unique users on YouTube, which is about 98% of people who have ever used OTT in India. And this list goes on. In terms of Facebook, India has the largest user base. WhatsApp, India has the largest user base in the world. And so this is where huge monetization can take place. And what we are looking at in India is also companies which are right from the beginning competing with global competition. China had the advantage where they had the Great Firewall of China, which provided opportunity to build, let's say, a Google of China, the Tencent, which is gaming, and and Alibaba, which had the protection from a government policy regulations, whereas Indian companies right from beginning are very resilient. So whenever they grow out of Indian startup ecosystem, they actually become extremely competitive and globally competitive as well. And very active, incubation space as well. So Triyansha, if you can take off the slides. I want to pause here and then try to get some perspective and comments from you, if you have anything to add or any questions.
I would have a question. When you said you have a 4 company IPO ready, do you see a preference for Indian tech company to list on the Indian securities market, or they would prefer a foreign market for listing?
Okay, so it varies depending on the company. If they are a globally focused company, they will want listing, maybe in the global markets as well. As you can see, some of our larger tech companies, when they were initially listed in India, they went to NASDAQ, like Infosys and Wipro in NYSE. I think that's a journey that some of them traverse. But Indian public markets generally prefer companies with profitable track record. So some of these startups, if they are still burning money, but have disruptive models, they will go list in NASDAQ or global markets first. But eventually, if they are India-facing companies, there is merit in actually being listed in India as well, because there is a huge gap between the amount of money that is waiting and being currently invested in India versus the quality companies which are available. That is one of the reasons you will find that Indian PE, which is price equity ratio, has always been high. People have complained about it, but in spite of that, people have also made phenomenal returns because of demand supply gap. So I think it will vary situation to situation based on whether they are profitable or not, whether they are only India focused companies or globally focused companies.
Thank you.
Hello, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Ersoy Erkazancı. I'm a TV presenter for Bloomberg HD. I'm Turkish, based in Dubai. I have 17 years of wealth management experience, but I also give consultancy to venture capitals and startups. So for me, listening to India is very interesting. I mean, in Dubai, there are lots of Indian people I meet. You are very talented, and when I listen to you, there is a big potential in India, but I can see. So my question is, if I want, for example, if I convince an investor or if I invest into Turkey, sorry, to India, what is the general trend? I mean, do I play for the local market because it's such a big population and big market? But there is currency risk, or do I then go try to jump into US or to other countries? So when I come to India, what's my play? My first question. Second question is, what are the popular sectors? Because technology is such a big space. Like, is it fintech, agri-tech? Which one is your muscles, India's muscles?
Fantastic question. The first one, in terms of, the best part about India is it's a large contiguous market, third largest in the world after US, China, and then India, because Europe still has a lot of walls between, countries. And that also provides a huge consumption market. 2/3 of Indian GDP is domestic consumption. Right? It's a consumption-led market like US. So typically, if you are looking at exploiting India, and that is where Indian investment opportunity, the consumer-focused business, Indian domestic consumption-focused business should help. Nearly 75% of our capital goes into problems which are solved, unique problems which are being solved in India. India is something that, classic example, why many of the US companies initially did not start e-commerce in India was they all said that Indians don't have credit card, not enough Indians have credit card to spend. But the disruption that came was even allowing cash on delivery. Even now about 50%, and obviously today India's payment systems are far more advanced than what you see globally. For example, we have this system called UPI, Universal Payment System, where I actually can know by knowing your mobile number, I can write a check to you. I can make a remittance from my mobile to your mobile number, and you will get an instant credit in your bank account to which your mobile number is attached. And this, I don't think most developed countries have yet. PayPal does that, but PayPal does not necessarily credit the account in your bank account. So these are some of the. But India also has developed global industries. Generics manufacturer for the global markets. And wherever there is a knowledge industry which comes in, which is beyond just manufacturing, where China has taken a lead, India is becoming a major player. We do see that our software service now becoming software products, which are now getting globally sold. So we invest in consumer tech, we invest in software, SaaS. We always say that whenever we invest in a SaaS company, we actually look at it only as a global play. Because just a pure India market or even an emerging market is less than 10% of the global market opportunity. So any investment that we look at it is something that has to be competitive globally, that is capable of being built into good scale globally. So normally after even if we find an Indian company, we invest in them, we actually ask the founders to shift to US, while the development can still happen in India because we have phenomenal talent arbitrage. But beyond that, we actually shift the at least business facing founders to US and start building it. So we have a company called Unifor, which is in voice technology space, which is dramatically improving the call center potential of the company, any customer. They are growing at 100% annually based in Bay Area. They are in San Francisco, they are in Palo Alto, and they are building it out there. And go to market, obviously you have some of the local talent which is available with their networks, but it is still an Indian company which is being built big way. So, and similarly, anybody who's solving platform type of solutions, whether it's in fintech or even health tech, where we are looking at some of the solutions that have been invested by us, whether sometimes devices, and sometimes the business models, they are transportable across the world. So we are in fintech, we are in a supply chain finance platform, which is India's largest. They do $200 million financing on a monthly basis. They can add a few zeros to that, just in Indian market itself, or India connected cross-border markets. But that platform is so powerful, it can be taken to even US and European markets, because SME financing is a challenge across the world, right? So they will go there as a solution provider, not necessarily a platform operator, right? But in India, they could still be a platform operator fully. That is how companies are looking at it. So both opportunities exist. And in terms of strength, I think wherever technology can come in, which are unique to India, they solve it and then they can go global. And we have been able to find fintech. There are some new companies coming up, and they should be transportable across. And in health tech, there is a lot of innovation that's taking place. The reason is very simple. India ratio of patient to doctor is abysmally low. And actually, we will not be able to catch up the needs of all the requirements except with the use of technology, right? And with technology coming in, like wearables, remote diagnostics is coming up. Actually, pandemic, we have had one of the strictest lockdowns, right, for the first 40 days, which got, at that time, they tell, Ruchi, please pardon me, many doctors do not adopt, information technology. They use a lot of technology otherwise in their, in the medical devices, but they do not necessarily use the information technology or all the new generation ones. And that, now many of them have moved to using telehealth, right? Video consulting, all of those things. They've adopted it. They feel that their productivity has gone up. We have a company in India, which we funded them, where today, before the doctor meets, the patient is asked a series of questions in a conversational AI platform. And on the basis of that, the triaging takes place, and the platform actually identifies 3 potential diagnoses, right? Once the doctor meets, it's already pre-cooked information that's available to the doctor. So doctor, instead of spending 15 minutes, can spend 5 minutes in terms of making sure that the key ingredients can be taken. And then later, once they acknowledge the diagnosis, then 3 treatment protocols are also presented. Then the doctor only has to click. It saves a lot of time. It also moves into EMR, right? This is a very integrated solution. And this we see actually is capable of taking globally, because this challenge, triaging, is an AI driven thing where volume of data is very important. And the variety of data is very important to be able to get it. And India provides that opportunity just because of the sheer volume of people that we do, right? And it's also, disease capital in multiple sense, right? Whether diabetic and cardiac, actually, I guess we will catch up shortly with US. So long-winded answer, but I think opportunities exist everywhere. So we choose where we go into.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. And, I thought that we also look at deep tech, which is coming up now, beyond what I spoke about, health tech, fintech. Deep tech is an area where we talk about in terms of intersection of sciences. For example, we invested in a Bionicom company, which is neuroscience plus computer science plus material science in terms of what material you use for the most efficiency, and also mechanical engineering, because they have a Bionicom where you can actually bend your thumb, which normally is not possible in the other solutions. And that's happening at a fraction of a cost, at 20% of the global competition. So that's a company that we find very interesting. It's a deep tech. Our investment is very small. It's just $500,000, right? And but that we believe can go global and then can build scale to become very attractive. Just moving on, I have also covered the India market opportunity, and I think I just wanted to also cover a quick this thing about how COVID has impacted, our both India and in terms of our portfolio. I think COVID was the toughest one. I think good thing is that it's a tailwind event for technology companies. Like I mentioned, many people who were not using technology earlier have started using it. They find it much more efficient, whether it's schools in terms of teachers, actually not only teaching on video, sending homeworks, and now actually evaluating homeworks on a cloud platform helps identify whether there is a concept problem or whether, because you always find the answers have come back, right? In between, now it's on a platform, you actually can identify what is the methodology used by the student also. The student also has to solve it. I think it's opening up huge opportunity. But having said that, our portfolio, we out of 90 companies, we have about 55 active companies now, because most others we have exited. They had I think, collective revenue of $1 billion annualized rate in March 20, which during lockdown came down, obviously in April to $380 million. But by June, it went to 725, August was 800. I think, by October, we should be close to $1 billion. All these are, and several companies are actually higher than the pre-COVID peak, as we see. And we expect that by March 21, they will be at a $1.5 billion run rate. And this, mind you, we are talking about a time when India's GDP is expected to contract by at least 10 to 11%. That is, the current estimates are varying anywhere from 9 to 15%. I think Goldman has estimated 14. We will only know when we see in rearview mirror. At the same time, the startups that we have backed collectively are going to grow at a 50% rate during this period. This is the opportunity that is not available in public markets. So that is something that we see COVID as a tailwind event for tech companies. And I always say that, businesses which do not go digital will not exist 10, 15 years later. Used to be a statement I used to make before COVID. After COVID, I think that timeline has been cut down by at least 5 years, if not more. And you will see that happening. I think currently we are all trying to get out of COVID, making sure that the healthcare crisis is taken care. But when people come back, whole new way of working is going to happen. Whole new productivity will come in. I think personally, my productivity has gone up by 30 to 50% without any commute, right? My travel, I used to be on the road more than 100 days a year, but now last 6 months I have not been, and all that time is extremely productive. And we will find more efficient ways. Otherwise, I could not have met all of you in one place, right? So I think this is throwing up, but obviously things will change as well. So this is the opportunity that is coming up, and we are actually looking at a lot of companies that are solving for it. In terms of future opportunities that is coming post-COVID world, Priyansha, you have that slide on, COVID impact and post-COVID world? What sectors we see as interesting? I think health tech, like I spoke about, is going to have a huge impact, and starting from triaging, solving. I think remote diagnostics is something that we see in a big way. In fact, I am currently evaluating a company with a very small band, can get ECG live transmitted, and it's not at 12. It is, the quality level is as good as a 12 point ECG, which is taken in a medical condition. Tech-enabled logistics, I think, is going to be big. There's a heightened sensitivity on insurance now, both life and health. India is highly underpenetrated there, and I think that is something that is likely to become much more digital. And we are in Policy Bazaar, we see that whenever you are able to collect data about a consumer more efficiently, that is actually helping better underwriting. in terms of finer pricing that is possible for consumer. We see some of those disruptions coming in. And India also has, as part of this whole COVID-led reaction, the government is liberalizing some sectors which are very, very important to note. One is actually the farming sector, which was earlier under a lot of regulations and as to how they can, sell and other things. Recently, they just passed 3 different legislations which is freeing the farming sector. So a lot of private sector is supposed to enter there, supposed to come up with much more efficient outcomes. We actually have backed 3 companies in that space, one in input, one in output, which is solving for better yield for the, and one which is a SaaS company which is going global. I think, health and fitness focus is very high. We are in a company called CureFit, which is, fitness to wellness. I think that is an area which is becoming highly interesting. Alternative foods because of that, in terms of alternative forms of supplements, meat replacements with all the vegan thing. I think these are areas that we see, and also because of all the working remotely, collaboration tools will become very interesting. And as we see deals now, we see more of these deals coming up. And fintech has always been an area where in the last 2 or 3 years, we have found a lot of innovation coming. That innovation is getting accelerated. Thank you, Priyansha. So before sharing, some data about Chiratae itself in terms of our track record and all, I would like to pause and see if there are any questions at the opportunity as well as post-COVID initiative, and then I can move into the Chiratae fund.
I have a general question. This is Samir Khosla, and our investments outside India, we focused on one is deep tech, but there's also core tech, and we've invested in ventures that are developing core tech in financial markets, infrastructure, cybersecurity, etc. While we find many propositions in the application layer, in India, it's been hard to find, for example, a protocol layer 1 development, layer 2 development happening in cybersecurity and other sort of, I'll use that as an example. And what I find is that, for example, in Switzerland, we've invested in companies which are related to the EPFL ecosystem around Lausanne, where there's a huge university support, a lot of funding available to develop core tech. Somehow, while we have IITs and other institutions in India, I find that very few companies actually working on core tech. So really, sorry for being long-winded, but the question is the B2B, B2C market so attractive in the application layer that the money is really following potential revenue and there's not much R&D efforts in core tech? Would that be true to say? Or what's your view on that? Love to hear that.
Yeah, let me share our journey in the B2B markets, especially the software markets like we brought about. In 2007 when we started, in fact, our first investment was in a product company. And when we started, and just to give you a background, me and my partner Sudhir were investors in Mindtree Consulting in '99 as part of our previous life in Walden, which is one of the well-recognized companies now with $1 billion plus revenue. But when we started, we said we will not invest in IT service companies. We will invest in product companies. And later, come early 2010 and later, we started getting SaaS. And like you said, Samir is on the application layer, right? And that's where you find the Zoho and Freshworks and those which are happening. But we do see subsequently in the mid-10s, like 15 onwards, and we invested in like a Unifor that I spoke about. It's a core technology which is led from AI. And actually, while the application is, efficiency improvement in a call center, but the core can be used in multiple areas, including as voice as a biometric security. And some of their customers are using it. And so that type of companies have started coming. And lately, in fact, in our Fund 3, we invested in a company which is one of the first single-digit number of companies in the cloud security, in containerized processing globally, which has got funded. And now they are closing a round by a leading Silicon Valley firm focused only on security. And they found this company and actually came into this company before the company was ready to even raise a new round. So this is happening as we see, and you would have seen even in DevOps side, there's a company called Postman, which today is able to help developers to use in a substantial way, far more efficiently. And they have also got recently $150 million round with a 2 billion valuation. I think there's a lot of core tech is being developed in India. They are more in the seed and A stage, and some of them are now breaking out beyond B and C rounds. And you will find more of them coming in the next few years' time. That is why people like us, we keep looking for these opportunities and we go in early. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
And to give a quick background about Chiratae, like I said, I think I covered in terms of where we invest, how much we manage, but all of this should also result in some performance, right? So our performance has been, in the first quartile for Indian funds. I think Fund 1, we returned in dollar terms because India, as you all know, Indian rupee always is on depreciating because we have a capital current account deficit, depreciates versus dollar. So there is a 3 to 4% typically is the depreciation that takes place. So on dollar basis, we have returned the net 2x in Fund 1. And 1.6x in gross was 2. And in Fund 2 is doing better than that. We are currently running at 11% net IRR, net of carried interest. We expect that because the fund is only 7 years old, we have another 3 to 4 more years to go. We expect that to settle around 15% IRR. Fund 3 is doing better than that. So that should be returning about 19 to 20% IRR, returning 3x net. And Fund 2 should generate 2.5x net. So it's been getting better. I think part of the opportunity, part of the reason for the improvement, I would attribute it to, I think, our learning from our mistakes, being able to apply our learnings for sharper selection and as well as actions, and also market opportunity going up. I think market opportunity when we started investing was less than 100 million users. As we speak, it's over 500 million users. And we do see that during the course of our Fund 4, which is what we are raising now, we expect that to be close to 1 billion users. That's a huge market opportunity being unlocked, not only by number of users and also the amount of transactions that will take place. Currently, only about 100 million people have ever done commercial transactions. Others are consuming media, whether it is reading news or WhatsApp or watching YouTube and other OTT for free. That is supposed to go to 400 in the next 5-7 years. 400 million users. That's supposed to grow 4 times and go deeper in terms of spend. So this is the opportunity we are going after. We are raising our Fund 4 now, and it's a $275 million fund. And out of that, we have raised about $205 million. Our LPs are from global LPs from US, Europe, rest of Asia, and India as well. So we do raise money in India as well. And similarly, in terms of types of investors, we have got institutional investors like IFC. We have got corporate investors with us who have invested because they like to see in terms of what disruption comes in their space, both tech and non-tech players who are investors in it. Family offices are a large part of our investors, both locally and in India, who are investing in it, both multilateral as well as fund of funds. Fund of funds also invest in us in a structured basis. So that is how we look at it. India's sovereign wealth fund, which is fund of fund managed by SIDBI, they have invested in our fund 3 as well as in fund 4. This is the source of our capital, and we look forward to actually Middle East as a region to also contribute to the capital where we can invest in the early stage tech. And just to give in terms of performance, the co-investment that we have as option is an area where for those who contribute more than 5 million, we offer equivalent amount they commit. We also do not charge any fee or carried interest. So if somebody commits $5 million, up to 5 million co-investment, there is no fee or carried interest. So the gross return comes to them without even a mortality risk because they are all highly scaled companies. So the portfolio, the co-investment portfolio is currently performing at 32% in dollar terms and 38% in rupee terms. So when a fund is generating, let's say, 20% IRR and you can generate 30% in co-investment, on a blended basis, actually a LP can look forward to 25% plus. So that is, we have a structured program for that because most others, and just to give a comparison of where Indian VC system stands, other than micro VCs who are 30 to 50, $80 million, who are also first generation. They have the first fund or at best a second fund which are in progress. In terms of those who have more than 3 funds and those who have a fund of 100 million plus, there are only 7 or 8 players. And out of that, Chiratae is a unique one, which is actually headquartered and decision making in India. The rest are, the 2 others with whom we get compared most often is Sequoia and Axel, who have a global presence. And so they have an India team in India. And whereas we are the ones who have started it here and comparable. Most others either have global presence or they have a US investor. So that's where we are. Happy to take questions from you. I know we are about to close anytime now. So we are just about 1 p.m. Middle East time. Happy to take any questions or clarifications that you might have.
I have a question. How long is the duration of your fund for? Oops.
Sorry, my network
No problem.
acted up and yeah. So I don't know where we stopped.
So how long is the duration of your fund for?
Our funds are 10-year duration with potential extensions if required approved by LPs.
So do you see exit on Indian tech sector longer than, for example, on the North American geographies?
That's a good question. The model for Series A investment to typically take 5 to 7 years. It's coming down closer to 5 years now. Seed will take possibly another year and a half extra. But we also have, that's why our portfolio concept is slightly interesting. 75% of capital goes into early stage, which is seed and EA. About 25% we keep it for growth stage investment, mainly into our own portfolio, which are previously funded by previous funds, but those funds do not have dry powder. Then we are able to invest from the new fund. Because we are entering at a later stage, we are able to exit them in maybe 4 to 5 years time. So door to door, it is 10 years in terms of from the first drawdown to hopefully last exit. But on average, the whole period is supposed to be about 6 years. Because we draw down over a 4 to 5 year period, and exits are supposed to start around the 5th or 6th year, and then go on till the 10th year.
Thank you.
Thank you, TC, for running the roundtable. I think Timia, she will just connect you with all the participants. So if they have any question or they want to take the discussion forward. Thank you all for participating at this roundtable, and hopefully things back to normal very soon so we can meet in person. Thank you, TC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed.